Storms that will move out the way, and trials will come to only test my faith.
Polytheism is the standard biblical truth. Basically because prophets preached it. Moses, David, Malachi, and Jesus were the primary proponents of polytheism. Moses in Genesis 14 verse 20 preached the term Most High God or El Elyon in Hebrew. In grammar, using the superlative adverb most is a comparison between three or more gods of its kind, whereas one of them is the most. It's like saying most beautiful flower as the most beautiful as compared among true flowers. If it's true flowers, then it must be true gods too. It's polytheism. Moses in Deuteronomy 10 verse 17 preached the term, God of gods. It's polytheism. He even preached himself as a god in Exodus 7 verse 1. Even David preached polytheism in Psalms 86 verse 8 and Psalms 97 verse 9 saying, among the gods, and exalted above all gods. These are true gods as it is indicated that they are exalted gods. Prophet Malachi 2 preached polytheism in Malachi 2 verse 10 in Hebrew as El Echad to mean, united one God, meaning a union of gods because it uses the term, united, which indicates multiplicity. Jesus too preached polytheism in John 10:34-35 by saying ye are gods and that this must be true doctrine as he concluded that the scripture about it cannot be broken meaning, it must stand. So it's polytheism. Objection may comes by saying, there are apparently verses on monotheism in the Bible. The thing is, are these apparently monotheism verses a conclusion or merely premises? Considering the polytheism of Moses, David, Malachi, and Jesus, then these apparently monotheism verses cannot be conclusion. These can only be premises. For example, John 17 verse 3 speaks of an only true God, but this is problematic as it never has shown scope. Is he the only true God in heaven and earth? It hasn't shown that to be so, therefore it's incomplete, it's vague and ambiguous. Deuteronomy 4 verse 39 says there is one God only in heaven and earth, but even this is questionable as it cannot be a conclusion. Considering the polytheism of Moses, David, Malachi, and Jesus, then it cannot be a conclusion but merely a premise. Relative to it is the verses like Isaiah 46 verse 9 saying I am God, there is none else. Even this is not a conclusion. The question is, where is God the only God of? In Hosea 13 verse 4 it says, Israel must know no God but me, meaning, God is only one for Mosaic Israel. In what terms? In worship according to Exodus 34 verse 14 wherein it says that Israel must worship only one God. With this reality, when it said, I am God there is none else, it must be understood as I am God for Mosaic Israel and none else for them to worship. That is, if we use a logical approach considering the polytheism teaching of the prophets. Likewise when it says in Deuteronomy 4 verse 39 that there is only one God in heaven and earth, this cannot be a conclusion but rather in logical approach means that there is only one God in heaven and earth for Mosaic Israel to worship. This is the result of applying logic because these monotheism verses cannot be conclusion considering the polytheism teaching of the prophets. Therefore, in clear application of logic, we cannot accept monotheism as a conclusion because polytheism as taught by the prophets is a reality that must stand. Prophets like Moses, David, Malachi, and Jesus preach polytheism, thus in view of it using a logical approach, then it must be conclusive. Polytheism is a standard biblical truth. Lastly, there are other more apparently verses on monotheism, but then, you can realize holes in them by simply asking, is it a conclusion or a premise? Because if it's a conclusion, then it contradicts the polytheism of Moses, David, Malachi, and Jesus, right? Thank you and God bless.